After gaining independence from Spain in the year 1800, Mexico was left with a huge land, the northern part of which was called Tejas or Texas, which had Native Americans living in it for centuries. Mexico had a big and sparsely populated land, but they didn't know what to do with it. So, what did they do? They invited American settlers into Texas in hopes of making the land economically useful. Mexico planned to rent out huge chunks of land to the settlers, and in return, the settlers would make the land economically useful for Mexico. American settlers arrived in Texas and started settling. But those settlers didn't come alone. They brought slaves with them, which was a crime in Mexico at that time. Not only that, the American settlers came with a rebel mindset and as independent frontiers. Soon after settling in Texas, the Americans did not want Mexico as their government and wanted to be identified as independent. At this point of time, Mexico knew their plan had backfired. As damage control, Mexico sent a military in Texas to remind the Americans that they are still in Mexico. This started a war between the Americans and the Mexican army, known as the Battle of Alamo. The war played a pivotal role in the Texas Revolution. Following a 13-day siege, Mexicans won and reclaimed the Alamo Mission near San Antonio, Texas, killing most of the occupants. But this inspired many more Texans and Americans to join the Texian army. Motivated by a desire for revenge, as well as to free Texas from the control of Mexico, the Texans defeated the Mexican army at the Battle of San Jacinto on April 21, 1836, and declared the newly formed independent Texas, or the Republic of Texas. The US recognized this newly formed Republic of Texas, but Mexico never did. Following Texas's successful war of independence against Mexico, US President Martin von Buren refrained from annexing Texas after the Mexicans threatened war. But ignoring the threats, the US annexed Texas as a state in 1845. While Mexico did not follow through with its threat to declare war if the US annexed Texas, relations between the two nations remained tense due to Mexico's disputed border with Texas. According to the Texans, their state included significant portions of what is today New Mexico and Colorado, and the western and southern portions of Texas itself, which they claimed extended to the Rio Grande River. Mexico, however, argued that the border only extended to the Nueces River, north of the Rio Grande. This resulted in a disputed land between Mexico and the US. But this is not all. Something that changed the American history was about to happen. In July 1845, James K. Polk was elected as the President of the US. James was highly influenced by the concept of manifest destiny, a phrase in the 19th century United States that represented the belief that America was destined to expand westward across North America. President Polk came into power with a wish list of tasks. One of them was to get California from Mexico. James K. Polk even offered to buy California for $25 million, but Mexico refused it. Angered by Mexico's refusal, Polk threw some dirty tricks. He ordered the commander of the US Army in Texas to move his forces into the disputed land that lay between the Nueces and Rio Grande River. Mexico, like any other country, saw this as a potential attack on its territory and sent a military to retaliate. A group of 1,600 Mexican soldiers attacked a small group of American soldiers, killing 11 of them and capturing the remaining 69. You may think that this is the loss of America, but this is what Polk wanted. President Polk wanted the situation to look like this, which he quoted in the Congress that the Mexicans had shed American blood upon American soil. This was enough for President Polk to convince the Congress to declare war on Mexico. On May 13, 1846, the United States declared war on Mexico. The US easily won the war. Polk got his California, and along with it, Mexico also gave up the disputed land between Texas and Mexico. Polk didn't just stop there. Following the capture of Mexico City in September 1847, Nicholas Trist, chief clerk of the Department of State and Polk's peace emissary, began negotiations for a peace treaty with the Mexican government. Furthermore, the war had encouraged expansionist Democrats to call for a complete annexation of Mexico. Yes, some Americans wanted the whole of Mexico to be a part of the US, and they could have easily got it, but they just took the land that was sparsely populated by the Native Americans. and the reason behind it was pretty dark and racist. The Americans wanted the Mexican land, but not the Mexicans. Some of them opposed annexing all of Mexico because according to them, Mexicans are not high-class citizens and do not deserve to live with white Americans. Later, Trist presented Polk with the Treaty of Guadalupe, Hidalgo, which was signed in Mexico City on February 2, 1848. Under the terms of the treaty, Mexico ceded approximately 55% of its territory to the United States in exchange for a $15 million lump sum payment and the assumption by the US government of up to $3.25 million worth of debts owned by Mexico to the US citizens. This treaty ended the war between the United States and Mexico, and you'd be amazed to learn that by its terms, Mexico ceded present-day states of California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, most of Arizona and Colorado, and parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Wyoming. Mexico also relinquished all claims to Texas and recognized the Rio Grande as the southern boundary with the US. While Polk would have preferred a more extensive annexation of Mexican territory, he realized that prolonging the war would have disastrous political consequences and decided to submit the treaty to the Senate for ratification. Although there was substantial opposition to the treaty within the Senate, on March 10, 1848, it passed by a margin of 38 to 14. As the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo brought an end to the Mexican-American War, it marked a significant turning point in the history of both Mexico and the US. The consequences of this conflict were profound and far-reaching, extending beyond mere territorial acquisition. For Mexico, the loss of vast portions of territory was a devastating blow. This loss not only diminished Mexico's territorial integrity, but also sparked debates over national identity, sovereignty, and the country's future trajectory. Meanwhile, for the United States, the acquisition of these territories significantly expanded its territorial footprint, fueling the ideals of Manifest Destiny and solidifying its position as the continental power. However, the war also intensified existing tensions over issues such as slavery expansion, indigenous rights, and the treatment of Mexican inhabitants in the newly acquired territories. These tensions would continue to simmer and eventually erupt into further conflicts. Thus, while the Mexican-American War formally ended with the signing of the treaty, its legacy continued to shape the socio-political landscape of North America. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think the world would have been different if the US didn't win the Mexican-American War? Let us know in the comments down below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more such interesting videos.